And I am live. Hi, my name is Tyriece Simon, and this is MMA Renegade episode, I believe, 17. I believe we're at 17 now. Welcome, welcome. For those who's watching live, thank you. For those who's watching on VOD, thank you. I appreciate you. What an event yesterday. What an event yesterday. And then we're gonna get into the main card and the crux of it and all everything like that. But you know, at first, going into this UFC 266, sorry, um, I was, I was mid about it. I was gonna be honest with you. Wasn't really all that excited about it. I knew the fights were going to be good, but didn't really grab my intrigue really. You know, I'm not a big Ultimate Fighter guy. I don't really watch the Ultimate Fighter. I prefer the Contender series over the Ultimate Fighter. Um, the co-main event, we're going to talk about that, but I've pretty much seen how that was going to play out. And then the Nick Diaz fight, as you got to hear more of Nick Diaz interviews and his thoughts on the fight, it raised some concerns and something to think about. So a lot of yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm ready to watch it. But I wasn't really feeling excited about it. And as the fights got on, and as we get to the prelims, and we seen the Dan Hooker fight, which he had a great performance against Nasrat. Um, in a unanimous decision, he showed his wrestling, and I think he looks revitalized in that division. Um, and then we seen uh the 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 final fight on the prelims, the Marlon Moraes versus Marab, and that was a great fight. So now we get to the main card, and I thought overall, I thought the main card delivered. Which we're gonna discuss in a second. So, uh, thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you. A little bit of news first. I have an interview coming out on. I'm hoping to have it out either by Monday or Tuesday with UFC veteran Randy Brown, which we talk, everything about his upcoming fight on October 9th. We talk about video games. We talk about just him getting into other business ventures. We talk about how he got into MMA. We talk about everything all in one interview. So definitely look out for that. I had a lot of fun with Randy Brown. He's a great guy. It was a pleasure to speak to him. So I can't wait for you guys to listen to that. So that's coming out soon. Um, Hopefully, you guys watch the prediction show because I'm going to connect back to that prediction show for a lot of these parts, especially the main event. All right, so where should we begin? Usually, I have Elijah here to give his whole spiel about he'll say last night in UFC 266, and I can't do that. I can't do it. You get probably hear myself. I'm a little congested, a little bit sick. The weather is changing, so I'm not gonna do that. But what I will say is, let's get to it. So UFC 266 went down last night with the main event being Alexander Volkanovski defending his featherweight title against Brian Ortega. Now, this is Brian Ortega's second title fight, his second chance to claim a title. He fought Max Holloway way back, I believe in 2016, 2017, maybe 2019. 2018, sorry, 2018. So he fought Max Holloway in 2018, December of 2018, to which he lost by, I believe, TKO. He was unable to answer the bell for the fourth round, I believe, and for the fifth round. And this is his second title fight. This was a fight where I had Ortega winning. And the reason why is because after that Max Holloway fight, he took some time off. He went to a new gym. He came back to fight Korean Zombie. It looked like a revived man. It looked like a different Ortega. Um, we always know he has the grappling. He always has a submission game in his back pocket. But it seemed like he had a refined striking game. He seemed like his footwork was a lot different. His defense was a lot different. Um, he was able to counter off shots, game plan some of his shots, and work them into the fight. early on, and to where they were effective later on in the fight, like the spinning back elbow, which he kept teasing by, touching the leg, and trying to get the distance. And so when then he was able to land the spinning back elbow, which was brilliant. Um, yeah, that Brian Ortega, which had his guard high and was, his footwork was good and had a great showing against Chan Sung Jung, did not show up last night. Did not show up last night. And I was banking and I was saying on my prediction that Brian Ortega, that Fort Korean Zombie, if that shows up, that beats Alexander Volkanovski. And that guy did not show up last night. And Alexander Volkanovski, who was consistent as consistent can be, showed up and showed why he is the champion. Um, just sticking on Brian Ortega, I think a big part of this is Brian Ortega. I think Alexander Volkanovski may have gotten in ahead of Brian Ortega. I think the rivalry, I think the feud between Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski um, resulted in the fight being bigger than what it was. I think it resulted in the emotions of Brian Ortega. I think it resulted in throwing off Ortega's game plan. And I think that's all credits due to Alexander Volkanovski and his intensity and how he carried himself throughout this fight, and the lead up to the fight. Um, I thought that Brian Ortega, when you look at the start of the fight, it seemed like he was headhunting. He was definitely headhunting, and the patient guy that fought against Korean Zombie and that fight was heated, and it was more towards Brian Ortega being heated at Chan Sung Jung, where in this standpoint is Volkanovski uh, being the aggressor against Brian Ortega. Um, I thought that I thought that Brian Ortega was headhunting. I thought his defense immediately looked off. Even the footwork, even the small things like the footwork, like him taking big steps from side to side, which is one of the things that I was talking about with I was praising him for a Korean Zombie fight, was that he was taking small steps side to side, conserving energy, not really, you know, moving so far away left and right, and just slipping to the right, slipping to the left, slipping to the right, where he's still not awkwardly off balance in a way where he's going to counter with something else. So you'll see him take a big step to the left, I believe, in the first round, and then you see him go with like another thing, like his striking again, which was off, and I think he was headhunting. He would go with a lunging jab and have his chin way up in the air, and those are things. Was like, okay, where is the Ortega that fought Chan Sung Jung? Because this Ortega is his footwork looks a little bit off, but that's fine. His striking looks a little bit like the old Ortega we saw in previous fights. That seemed like he needs to refine those skills. And then the guard, the high guard, where he had his hands like this for most of the fight and was able to be patient. He was rushing in and he had his chin up in the air, which if Volkanovski, which he did several times in the fight, could have countered with a right hook and a counter against Brian Ortega, which he landed that right hook repeatedly in the fight for on Ortega. Yeah, that was one of the things that I was like, oh man, this Ortega is not gonna win, and I can see him getting finished, which he almost did. Um, I thought he was trying to go for the body kicks early. I'm surprised he didn't go more for the leg kicks to slow the movement down of Volkanovski. I'm also surprised. We talk about the Ortega, the T kicks. T kicks. I didn't think we didn't see any real T kicks. We went for the body kicks, yes, but he didn't go with the T kicks to the body, um, which I thought could have been there. And I thought that instead of being the patient, instead of being the aggressor, I think it would have boded well if he was the counter puncher, and I think he had great moments where he is the counter puncher, um, and Volkanovski, to his credit, he was the aggressor. His feints looked good early on. I was confused by his stance. I thought Volkanovski may have had a different stance for this fight. He's like he had a more karate based stance, but then he also switched it up later in the fight, which I thought was interesting. Um, but yeah, I just speaking strictly on Ortega for a second before we go to Volkanovski. I was very surprised by just where Ortega his game plan in and what his stance and how his approach was to the fight. You know, I didn't even understand really the game plan. I don't think I understood what the game plan was with Ortega. He seemed he said that he was looking for the submissions in the post fight. He said he was looking for the submission. That was the game plan. So I wonder how that was going to translate. If the fight didn't go that way, was he going to look for a takedown in the fight? Was he going to look for try to get in the clinch and try to get a submission off or try to get him a takedown on and against the cage? Like I don't understand what the game plan was. It seemed like he was trying to headhunt and trying to box Brian Ortega. I mean, Alexander Volkanovski, and I thought that was his undoing. But that was his undoing, and the fact of his guard, his movement, and I think Volkanovski is just a better striker and more consistent striker than Brian Ortega. So that I thought was puzzling. That he was more of a boxing approach, trying to go tit for tat with Volkanovski. Um, for Volkanovski, man, again, he proves he's consistent. He proves that he has a very, very high level IQ in a fight game. Um, he didn't go for takedown. Was content with standing with Ortega. Um, he had his feints threw Ortega off a bunch of times, and even his stance switching and his movement. I criticized how he would he'd be one to like when he switched stances, he'll leave his hands down and he'll uh you know or when he takes these steps, he'll leave his hands down in moments when he's not throwing feints. And I thought he did a good job of keeping his hands up, and I think part of that is because Brian Ortega was so willing to take those shots, um, and I thought he did a great job. Um, it gets to the third round, and we're pretty much clearly seeing Volkanovski besting Ortega, and Ortega, goes for a Hail Mary, goes for a triangle, goes for a. Did he go for an armbar? No, he went for a guillotine. He touched Volkanovski with a left hand, and then went straight into a guillotine, which anybody would have probably tapped out or probably found himself in a bad position. But he was able to. Volkanovski was able to withstand that and was able to get out of not one but two of Ortega's best submissions, the guillotine and the triangle choke, and was able to get on top and then able to land some strikes. And I thought from there it was pretty much clear that Ortega had nothing left to give. Um, and the fight proved itself where Ortega, seen after that moment and after that third round, and especially the accumulation over the strikes he absorbed, it's like he had nothing really left to give for Volkanovski. Um, and even in the fifth round, where it seemed like Ortega's coming back and rallying back and maybe won that round. Sorry. I thought that Volkanovski was just running out the clock. I didn't think Volkanovski felt like he was in real danger. I didn't think Volkanovski felt, um, you know, I think Volkanovski took that round off, honestly, and I think he knew had the fight won between the first round, second round, third round, the fourth round. I think about the fifth round, he said, I'm gonna have that match won, but I'm still gonna be competitive. I'm still gonna try to land some strikes. Um, and he could have easily went for a takedown or easily he try to milk the clock by trying to just evade or take a straight punches, but he stayed with them. So credit to Volkanovski again, from beginning to end, he has the same pace, and I'm impressed by his endurance. He has crazy, crazy endurance for somebody at 145. Um, he seemed like he had the same pace from round one going into round five. And I think part of that is because of just what Ortega was willing to take. And I think, you know, they made a point about how Chan Sung Jung was a different opponent than Volkanovski, which is true. Um, but there's things where Brian Ortega came out the gate and had that stance, had a more of a flat-footed stance, and was trying to walk Volkanovski down. It didn't seem like he was. It seemed like he was trying to headhunt and trying to go for the knockout rather than pick his shots, pick his moments, be patient, and keep his defense up, and have a game plan and how to beat Volkanovski. I feel like he was just trying to go in and trying to go for a knockout. Which again, if you see some of the moments in the fight, you see that it was like he was not. There was a game plan I think I can recognize with again him going headhunting, going with the jab that had his chin up in the air, not really going with his kicks. Really, he had a couple of body kicks, but nothing substantial or excessive. So, but yeah, Ortega loses again in the title fight. Volkanovski wins again, and Volkanovski deserves credit. He deserves respect. I I hear this debate going on that Volkanovski is the greatest featherweight of all time, or should be in the conversation the greatest featherweight of all time, which is true. I think you could put him in that conversation as one of the best UFC featherweights of all time. Um, it's too early. It's too early. It's too early to say that Volkanovski is the greatest of all time in the UFC. Hopefully, people say in the UFC, not overall. I think that Volkanovski still needs to do more. He needs to prove more. He's on a 20 fight I think win streak right now. Um, I think with Volkanovski, the problem is that I still think Max Holloway beat Volkanovski. I think Max Holloway is beat Volkanovski in the second fight. Um, and you could go either way with the first fight. I think Volkanovski won the first fight, but I definitely do think Max Holloway beat him in the second fight. Um, and I think that's a fight where I'll be interested to see how the rematch goes. Um, you know, it's too early. It's too early. When I'm looking at Max Holloway's what he's done at featherweight, you have Calvin Kattar, Frankie Edgar, Brian Ortega, of course, Jose Aldo twice, Anthony Pettis, Ricardo Lamas, Jeremy Stevens, Charles Oliveira, Cub Swanson, Cole Miller, Clay Collard. List goes Andre Feely. Like the list goes on and on and on. He's fought the who's who in the featherweight division. He fought Conor McGregor, and that went to the decision. But that was a tough fight. It's Dustin Poirier when he was young in his first fight in the UFC. Max Holloway had a bunch of fights where he's fighting the best of the best of the best. Whereas I think Volkanovski still needs to prove that and have that run. And even in the last fight with Volkanovski, again, I say Max Holloway beat Volkanovski. So I still have Max Holloway as the leader in what could be the greatest featherweight of all time by far. And look at the results too. Look at the results of what he did. Max Holloway's beating, Brian Ortega by stoppage. He's beaten Calvin Kattar by just absolutely battering him and having the greatest performance I've ever seen in a main event. Jose Aldo finishing him twice. Anthony Pettis finishing him. Charles Oliveira, like the Cub Swanson. This goes on and on and on. Max Holloway's record in the featherweight division is not to be ignored, and I think it's too early to say that. Sorry, it's too early to say that Alexander Volkanovski is the greatest featherweight of all time. It's too early, but he could be. He could be. For Brian Ortega, I don't know where he goes from here. This is the second title loss. You would have to think he has to fight his way back to it. I know people are saying that he looks better after the loss. I think that's untrue. I think he looks worse. Especially when you think about the whole thing with Brian Ortega was that after the Max Holloway fight, he's refined his skills. He's a changed man. The striking is better. The defense is better. Now we have a prime contender. And then when I say that guy is not the guy we saw last night, that kind of hurts the stock of Ortega than actually helps the stock. I know he had a great third round and he showed his toughness. We know Ortega is tough. We know that. But it's what you could do with those skills and what you could do against the best of the best. And I felt like after the Max Holloway fight, I thought we finally saw a corner with Ortega, and then he has this performance here where it's like, you know, he looks he if there's a picture out there where do a side by side picture of Brian Ortega versus Max Holloway fight versus Volkanovski, and it goes to show you just the elite level skills of Max Holloway and Volkanovski, but also shows you that maybe Brian Ortega is not on that level. Yeah, performing. Sorry, maybe Brian Ortega is not on that level with the champions, and he's going to be tough to beat for a lot of people in the featherweight division. It'll be a tough point for everybody. But I think Brian Ortega, it, it hurts his stock a lot because I don't know how you viably put him back into title contention. It's gonna take about 3 or 4 fights, I would think, before you could say he could be back in title contention in the featherweight division, and it needs to be consistent. It needs to be consistently winning at a certain level for you to honestly think that Brian Ortega could beat the likes of a Max Holloway or a Alexander Volkanovski right now. But he's still good, he's still an elite level fighter. He's just not at the level of the Max Holloways, the Brian Ortegas in the world, where that's where you're going to need to be in order to be that champion in that stacked division. So, thoughts with Brian Ortega. Hope he recovers well. But yeah, it was not a good showing from him. And for Volkanovski, man, I guess we'll wait to see the winner of Yair Rodriguez versus Max Holloway, which is happening in November. I imagine Volkanovski is going to take off. I imagine we're not going to see Volkanovski probably till the spring or close to summer of next year. I would think. Um, so we'll see what happens with Volkanovski and the winner of that fight. Um, but I would love to see Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 3. Um, I would love to see other matchups for him. You got get G.O.A.T out there. You have other fighters that I think Volkanovski needs to beat in order to be the greatest featherweight of all time. So I'm interested to see where his journey goes from. But good win for Volkanovski. And I can't wait to see what he does next. He's a really, really good fighter. And somebody where I think is going to be tough to beat. All right, moving on. Co-main event. Shachenko versus Lauren Murphy. Fight goes to fourth round, TKO. Not really much to say here. I will say this. It seems like nobody in this featherweight division right now is on a level of Shachenko. It seems like Shachenko is just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody. I just, you know, I hear the talk of maybe you do Shachenko goes back up to bantamweight. I don't want to see that. I think Inter could stay in her lane. I think Shachenko could stay in her lane. Um, I think that there are fights that Shachenko could continue to fight. Tila Santos, who fought early on, looked good against Roxanne Modafferi. Jessica Andrade is still there. Um, I think another thing to look at is what if people at 115 move up to 125? What if you have Rose Namajunas versus Shevchenko in a super fight? What if you have Weili Zhang moving up to 125? You have there's other people that can move up to 125 and be an exceptional fights for Shevchenko. So I think there's a bunch of fights she could have at 125. I don't think. Sorry guys, for 1 second. Again, allergies and probably having a cold. I'm not really feeling well. Hold on. Oh man. All right. So yeah, but I don't think that Shevchenko needs to move up to bantamweight in order to have some good fights. I think Shevchenko could continue to fight out the flyweight division and dominate that division. And I think Shevchenko could also look at some of the people at 115 that could come up. There's a bunch of fighters that are elite at 115. I would love to see Angela Hill make the move to 125 and see how she does at that weight class. We'll love to see, Michelle Watterson is somebody that, she's smaller, but maybe she can make the jump. There's a bunch of fights and a bunch of fresh matchups who are the same size of Shevchenko, who I think is a better matchup, and I think the Nunes fight versus Shachenko, as great as it is, Shachenko has a striking ability that I think is better than Nunes, but I think Nunes also has the power that is just a big hurdle to jump over. So, um, and it leads to two fights where we've seen the result, we've seen Nunes win both, and you just don't want to see another one. It's not the most entertaining fight to see. Um, and I don't think anybody gets finished. I don't think anybody gets stopped. I think it's just going to be a very technical fight where I think both ladies are aware of what the other can do. So I don't think that's a good fight. But good with Shevchenko, Laura Murphy. Unfortunately, it just seems she was trying to survive. Um, and it sucks because I know she's been trying to get this fight for a while. She was on a 5 fight win streak going into this, beating people like Angela Lee, Roxanne Modafferi, Joanne Calderwood. But Shevchenko is just way better. And she's just leaps and bounds above the rest. And maybe if Shevchenko wasn't here, maybe we talk about Laura Murphy as the new champion. But we're talking about you know one of the greatest female fighters in the UFC history, and that's a big hurdle for Laura Murphy to jump over. So, um, good for her. Good, glad she had an opportunity. Um, I'm interested to see where she goes from here. But good win for Shevchenko. Um, and moving on to the other main event, um, Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. Some people are gonna hate this, but I thought Nick Diaz looked good. I think Nick Diaz looked good for somebody that hasn't fought in more than 5 years. I thought he looked good for somebody that may not have been motivated for this fight. I think he showed he still has a lot more in the tank. Um, sorry for 1 second. I thought he showed he still have a lot more in the tank. I thought I don't remember Nick Diaz being the super fast and I'm talking about the last time I seen him was against Anderson Silva. I remember Nick Diaz having awesome hand speed. I remember Nick Diaz just touching you up, and then he'll land something big, and that's pretty much his style. Where it's just a bunch of just landing and just throwing strikes where it just overwhelms you. And I think we saw that Nick Diaz yesterday. I thought Nick Diaz looked great. Honestly, um, I thought his hooks to the body. You've seen the speed there. Um, you've seen Robbie Lawler. Even when he was in his guard, he was touching him up and just doing a little bit of things to open him up to where he'll land something, which I thought was good. Um, I thought Nick Diaz looked really good. It's just the time away, and I did not know this. I did not know it was going to be a 5 round fight, which I thought was very interesting. Which, if you think about it, I can see why Nick Diaz. There's Nick Diaz talked about how he's not sure why this fight was made or why he's fighting Robbie Lawler. You talking about how he felt he should fight Kamaru Usman, and I feel like Nick Diaz was unmotivated for this fight. And I feel like Nick Diaz was taking this fight not because he needs the money, not because he wants the attention. I think it's a problem where Nick Diaz has been wanting to fight for so long, and with the suspension that is ridiculous, with the issue with Dana White, which I talked about in the prediction show. I think Nick Diaz just wanted to fight and wanted to fight anybody, and he just wanted to fight somebody, and I think Robbie Lowe was floated around. I think he just said, if that's the only fight you're going to give me, I'll take it. I just want to be active, and that's what it was. But I think that also led to him not being motivated because he didn't feel intrigued about it. It was just whatever was presented to him at the time. That's what just got done, and it seemed like that was uh, what we seen yesterday. It seemed like Nick Diaz was there. It seemed like he was aware. Um, even him, saying no mas and saying no more. I thought that was a good fight IQ. Looking at where he was, um, I think there was also like a huge knot on his right leg too. Like you see the his right underneath his knee. There's like a huge knot there, which I thought was interesting. Um, and I thought that Nick Diaz with his nose and stuff like that is like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna push it anymore. I know where I'm beat, and I think it's a good. I think it was a good stoppage. I think it was a good decision. I think we need to see more of that actually in the UFC and in MMA, where a fighter just says, you know what, I can't take it, and or somebody throws in the towel. Um, but I thought it was a good fight. I thought Robbie Lawler showed that he still has he's still a fighter and not a fighter, but he's still somebody that can give people fits. Um, I would love to see Robbie Lawler versus a Max Griffin next. I think that'd be a great fight. Um, or if you want to keep doing these legacy fights with fighters, I think it's not bad. Maybe you do Robbie Lawler versus Kelvin Gastelum. I think Kelvin Gastelum is talking about wanting to go to 170. Maybe you do Robbie Lawler versus Kelvin Gastelum, and that'll be Kelvin Gastelum's reintroduction to welterweight, and that'll also be Robbie Lawler, fighting a big name. And then also with Nick Diaz, then I would love to see a Nick Diaz. I think Chael Sonnen brought it up at the post show. Nick Diaz versus a Damian Maya would have been interesting. A Nick Diaz versus a Cowboy Cerrone would be interesting at 170. Actually, Nick Diaz making the weight and going to 170, I think that'll be interesting. Yeah, there are still fights I think Nick Diaz could still have. I think you have to give him a grace period. He is coming back from a long layoff. Um, I thought from what we've seen for a 5-round fight, which I think is ridiculous. I think he looked good. I'm interested to see more from him, and I think if we see him in the training camp more with a guy like Donald Cerrone, which is a fresh matchup who he's never faced before, maybe that does get that spark out of Nick Diaz. We will see in the second fight where he is more aggressive, he is moving forward, he is being the classic Nick Diaz what people love. And I think that for Don Cerrone and for Nick Diaz, I think that's a great fight. That could be a co-main event on a pay-per-view, and that will be the big attention grabber on the card. So good for both. Good praise both, and hope to see what they do next. Just run through this real quickly. Curtis Blades beat Jesse Rubenstruck. Good fight. I think it played out exactly what maybe people would have thought. Jesse Rubenstruck is more of a counter fighter. He's more of a patient fighter. Curtis Blades, with the wrestling ability, with is also quickness and striking. I feel like it was going to be fits, and it was. So good win for Curtis Blades. I don't know what his next fight will be, but at least he's back in Wilcom. At least he's back in the conversation of being a possible contender for the heavyweight title. Jessica Andrade versus Cynthia Calvillo. I thought that this was a big jump up in competition for Cynthia Calvillo. I thought you see the clear difference in just power too. Jessica Andrade was walking through a bunch of what Cynthia Calvillo was offering the jabs, which I thought she was throwing good jabs off her back foot, but really could have put a really sting behind them and put power behind it, which on her back foot. Whereas everything that Jessica Andrade did made Cynthia Calvillo move. Like Cynthia Calvillo was almost bullied by Jessica Andrade in that fight. You may be hearing some stuff in the background, so he's making breakfast. But Cynthia Calvillo was almost bullied by Jessica Andrade, and I think that Jessica Andrade was just way too much. And I thought it was a good stoppage too. I know people have some debate on whether the fight was stopped too soon, whether Herb Dean did a bad job. I thought it was a good stoppage. I thought once that uppercut landed on Cynthia Calvillo, and you see her turtle up in the corner, I mean, against the cage, I was like, yeah, this fight should not go on any further. It's one of those things where Cynthia Calvillo is something that the UFC wants to push. The UFC wants to push Cynthia Calvillo as this next, star or this next, title contender kind of like what Paige Van Zant was, and what Sage Northcutt was, and all the other people that the UFC tried to make the new stars. And I think Cynthia Calvillo is just not on that level. And I think part of that also is just being fed top level competition instead of being risen up the ranks slowly and surely and getting to that level. I think Jessica Andrade was a huge step in the competition. Cynthia Calvillo right now, I believe she is. Let me see her age. Cynthia Calvillo is, first of all, she's 9-3, and I think this is Jessica Andrade's 20th fight in the UFC. It's a 2-fight losing streak, killing Shakazian and Jessica Andrade. And she is 34 years old. So it's a little, I think 34 years old, we're talking about Cynthia Calvillo and the push that they've been trying to give her. And granted, she's good. She's a good fighter. I think that it's just mismanagement. I think it's just bad matchups, and I think it is the UFC playing their hand and not being able to, slowly bring somebody up the ranks and get her there. She's 34 years old. I think she still has some fight left in her career. I think you shouldn't count Cynthia Calvillo out. But I think the UFC, if they're trying to push her as this star, I think they have to slowly bring her up the rank. Slowly, not slowly, but she's 34 years old. But give her matchups that suit her style, and then you could have her get better and try to quickly try to get to these other females level. I think a fight against Roxanne Modafferi may be a good fight for Cynthia Calvillo. That's a good fight. I think that's something where Cynthia Calvillo could I think that can make Cynthia Calvillo a better fighter, or could show you where Cynthia Calvillo is at. I think Roxanne Modafferi is a good test for Cynthia Calvillo, somebody that is a veteran, and congratulations for Roxanne Modafferi for being the woman the first female fighter to have over 50 fights. I believe that's the stat. Let me see exactly. Yeah, to the first female fighter to have over 50 fights. Good for her, and I'm interested to see exactly what the UFC does with Cynthia Calvillo. I think Cynthia Calvillo versus Roxanne Modafferi is a good fight. For Jessica Andrade, she talks about wanting to go back to 115. I'll be okay with that. I'm not mad at that at all. With Rose Namajunas and Weili Zhang, I thought the second fight with Weili Zhang, I thought it was a good fight. With Rose Namajunas, I thought it was a good fight. I thought Rose Namajunas got hurt later on the round, and the Weili Zhang fight is always there, so that's an interesting fight there. Overall, I would give this card an A. I thought the fights were interesting. I thought the main event was great. I'm not sure if it's the greatest greatest fight this year or the greatest featherweight fight of all time. But it was definitely a great performance from both fighters, from Volkanovski, and not really the technical aspect of Brian Ortega, but I think his heart is something that should be admired for what he did. His ability to not give up and to be durable, and we'll see where he goes from there. The co-main event, Shachenko proves again why she's one of the best one of the best female fighters in the UFC history. Co-main event, I think both Robbie Lawler and Nick Diaz put on a classic. And yeah, I think it's an A. I think it's an A. So, guys, you please tell me your rating for the card in the comment section. Please tell me your thoughts on what you think, whether I'm off on everything or whether you think I'm maybe right on some things. I'm interested to see your thoughts on this and whether you enjoyed the card. And yeah, so we'll be back. I'll try to do a MMA news show on Thursday. Maybe there'll be a update on the John Jones situation. we'll look out for that, and look out for the interview that I will do. Will have done and put out hopefully by either Monday or Tuesday. Um, I'm processing it now, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you. Until next time, my name is Tyriece Simon. This has been MMA Renegade, episode 17.